me begin with an unhappy hypothetical. Let's imagine that masked gunmen run into this room, balaclavas, machine guns, and they herd us all into unmarked white vans parked outside. And as they herd us into these unmarked white vans, they inject us with a serum that makes us forget who we are, what we've done, everything about ourselves. It wipes the memory banks. It knocks us cold. And then we all come to in this massive factory space. There's no windows, no doors, no entrances, no exits. It's just us and the room. And pretty soon, people start to have theories about who am I? Where have I come from? What is the meaning of this room? And is there anything beyond this room? After a while, there are a few theories. So Hopeful Harry gets up to his feet, and Hopeful Harry is a bit of an optimist. He's a glass half full person. And Hopeful Harry says, guys, look, I know it looks bad now, but I've got a good feeling about this. I just feel like somebody out there likes me. I don't know why, it's just this feeling in my gut, and you've got to go with your gut, don't you? That's Hopeful Harry. He believes that there is something more to the room, there is something beyond, and that something likes him, maybe even loves him. And in the world, there are Hopeful Harrys, aren't there? Maybe you're starting to sense that this is an illustration of a bigger truth. Because here we are people who have ended up on planet Earth, and we don't know how we got here, we don't know who we are. What's the meaning of this world? Is there anything beyond this world? Is there anybody up there who likes us, or maybe even loves us? So we all have our theories, don't we? And some of us are Hopeful Harrys, and some of us just think, somebody up there does like me. I have a feeling in my bones. And such a person might describe themselves as perhaps spiritual, but not religious. There's that kind of person, isn't there, in the world? Someone who thinks there is some kind of benevolence out there in the cosmos. Let's call that person the Hopeful Harry. But there are other kinds of people, aren't there? Let's go back inside the room, and after Hopeful Harry has enthused about his vision of reality, up steps somebody else, Scientific Sally. And Scientific Sally says, Harry, I like you, you're fun at parties, but I just can't go with my gut. I've got to go with something that's a little bit more tangible, a little bit more scientific. And so Sally gets out the measuring tape, and she starts to do these experiments on the room, and she starts to discover that there are all kinds of signs of architecture, intricate architecture, and she starts to reason to herself, well, perhaps if there's architecture, there's an architect. Perhaps if there's intricate design, there is a designer. And she says, guys, I'm not sure I can tell you much about the designer, but I do have some faith that there is a designer. And of course, in the world, there are Scientific Sallys, and their science doesn't lead them away from faith. Their science actually leads them towards faith as they see the intricate design of the cosmos. As they see marks of architecture in this world, they start to think that perhaps there is some grand architect. I can't tell you a lot about that grand architect, but I believe to some degree. So who are you? Are you a Hopeful Harry or a Scientific Sally? Or back in the room, there's a third kind of person. He stands up, and he's not as optimistic as Harry, and he's not quite as scientific as Sally. And he just says, guys, why are we worried about what is beyond this room? You know, Harry, you've got this gut feeling. How do you know? Sally, you're making these interesting calculations and experiments, but I don't know what you're comparing that to. All we've got is this room. So can we shut up about what's outside the room? And can we just try to make this room as good as we can possibly make it? That's Skeptical Stephen. And of course, there are Skeptical Stephens in the world. And they say, please, can we shut up about what is beyond this life? Let's use all that great science, Sally. Let's use it to make this life as good as we can possibly make it. What do you make of Skeptical Stephen? If I had to choose between those three, Hopeful Harry, Scientific Sally, Skeptical Stephen, I think I'm with Stephen. I think I'm totally with Stephen. But then, there's a fourth option. Then bits of ceiling start to crumble down. And a man appears in the middle of the room and he says, "I'm from beyond and I'm here to rescue you." Does that change the conversation in the room? Do you think? You might not believe this guy. You might think that this guy has cabin fever and is just hallucinating the whole thing. Or maybe you have cabin fever and you're hallucinating the whole thing. Maybe you want to pepper this guy with questions. But his entrance into the room and his claims about himself changes everything in the room, wouldn't you say? And of course, that's the Christian claim about Jesus. Jesus is someone who definitely claims to be from beyond this world. In John chapter 17, verse 24, Jesus is praying before a whole bunch of people, and he says, "Father, you loved me from before the foundation of the world." Jesus says he was there before the universe began. Jesus is definitely claiming to be from beyond this world, and he definitely is a figure within human history. So what do we make of Jesus? Really, that's what tonight is all about. We want to pepper the man in the middle of the room with questions. Are you really who you say you are? Have you really come from beyond? Do you really know how the room operates? Tonight we're going to be thinking about whether we can trust this man Jesus. And in particular, can we trust his vision of God and his vision of ourselves? If we can trust him, then everything changes.